Hi, sixth grade. I hope you had a good weekend. Today we are going to move on to page 29 in your books. It's 1-5B. Today we're going to be focusing on multiplying and dividing by 10, 100, and 1,000. Okay, so get your notes set up. Again, always pause the video if you need more time. Okay, if I'm going quickly, I'm just trying to keep the video short and sweet so you don't have to have a math video that's 45 minutes. But if it takes you a little bit longer to write, please just pause, write what you need to, and then continue the video. Okay, today's a fun lesson. We get to use a calculator. So if you have a calculator, grab it. If you're going to use something else, as long as it has a calculator, like maybe a phone or an iPad or something of the like, that's fine with me. Okay? We're going to do the activity that's in the book on page 29. So if you want to follow along, this is activity 1, and it's also going to be our first example for the day. And it says use, in your book, it says use a calculator to multiply. So we have 2.6 times 10. So if I plug that into my calculator, I don't know how well you guys can see that, but 2.6 times 10 equals 26. Okay, I want you to be doing this with me. So if you don't have a calculator yet, go pause the video, grab a calculator. 2.6 times 100 is 260. Now we're going to do 2.6 times 1,000. Notice a pattern. 26, so 2.6 times 10 turned into 26. 2.6 times 100 turned into 260. And 2.6 times 1,000 turned into 2,600. Let's do another round, okay? This is B. 45 hundredths, 0.45 times 10 equals 4.5. Okay. 0.45 times 100 equals 45. And 0.45 times 1,000 equals 450. So 0.45 turned into 4.5. 0.45 times 100 turned into 45. And for the last one, we got 450. Check your answers. Is that what you got? Okay. We're going to move on page 29 to their third part of the activity, which is now dividing by 10, 100, and 1,000. So we go back with the same number. So 2.6 was what we started with. We're going to do around dividing now with 2.6. And then after we finish, we're going to do 0.45 like we did up here. Okay? So in your calculators, let's go ahead and solve. So we're going to go back to 2.6. And this time we're going to do divided by 10. And we get 0.26. Okay, so it got smaller, which is true, right? When we multiply numbers, if we think about multiplying, even if we start with like something small like 2 times 3, when we multiply, those answers always get bigger, right? Which was true even with decimals. 2.6 times 10 gave us 26. That's a bigger number. But when we divide numbers, they get smaller, okay? Same thing with decimals. So now we're going to do 2.6 divided by 100 this time. So this time 0.026. What do you think the last one's going to be? Can you make a prediction? Based on what we see, it was 0.26, 0.026. What do you think is going to happen for this one? 0 point, guesses? 0, 0. 2, 6. So now the 6 is in the tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000ths place. So we have 26 10,000ths. It's a very small number. We're going to do the same thing with 0.45. When we divide by 10, I get 0.045. When I divide by 100, we get 0.0045. Can we make a prediction? What's going to happen when we divide by 1,000? Is that what you guessed? 3 zeros this time. 3 zeros. And now the 5 is in the tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000ths, 100,000ths place. Very small. Okay, guys. So here's what we know. Here's what we know. Can we see that? The takeaway. When we multiply by tens, hundreds, of thousands, you move the decimal to the right. Okay? So if we just focus on the multiplication, back up at the top, writing this down in your notes. When we multiplied by a power of 10, it had 1 0. And the decimal, it moved 1 place to equal 26. When we had 2.6 times 100, we had 2 zeros. And so the decimal moved 2 spaces to 260. And then when we multiplied by 1,000, there were 3 zeros, and our decimal, which started at 2.6, moved 3 spaces and made it 2,600. So when you multiply by 10 or 100 or 1,000, the decimal moves to the right the same number of spaces as the zeros, right? So I'm just going to write that off to the side. Count your zeros. Okay, because it's going to be the same number of spaces that you move. What's important is that when you multiply, your number gets bigger. Okay, you want it to move to the right. Just like when we divided, our numbers got smaller. Okay, so when you divide by 10, 100, or 1,000, you move the decimal to the left so that the number gets smaller. Let's take a look at 3a. We started with 2.6, and when we divided it by 10, which has 1 0, the 2.6, which was there, it moved to the left 1 space. When we divided by 100, that has two zeros, it moved 2 spaces. And when we had 3 zeros, it moved to the left 3 spaces. Okay, so it's always going to be our count our zeros is for both multiplication and division. Okay, our count, it's for both, right? But it's important to note that when we're dividing, our decimal moves to the left because those numbers, they need to get smaller. Okay, so tonight I want you to practice this. The first 6 problems, it's asking you to not use a calculator, okay? So for our homework on page 29, 1 through 6, no calculator. Use these rules, okay? Use these rules and count your decimal places. So if they're moving to the right, it's because it's a multiplication problem, and if it's moving to the left, then it was a division problem. So for 1 through 6, there's no calculator. And then for 7, the last one, it has 4 parts, so A, B, C, D, and it says specifically use a calculator, and so you may. All right, you guys? Please be sure to send me a picture of your notes that hopefully look just like mine and your completed assignment when you finish. Have a good day.